Hey everybody, June 17th, 2025, and I'm here with your after hours recap. Apologize getting this out a little bit later than usual, but let's just get right into it. Today, I thought was a fairly muted day. If you are in names that have been leadership quality, like a hood, nothing really wrong with it. Obviously intraday has a pretty, not sizable pullback, but it just has a fairly typical pullback, while this stock is just digesting some of these absolutely monster gains. And then on the flip side of that, you've got a stock like CrowdStrike, kicking myself for not still owning this one. And you can just see, just out to a new all-time closing high, and then, a little bit extra in after hours. And I actually thought that cybersecurity stocks today were actually standouts. Zscaler continues to be a touch extended, has done nothing wrong here, just digested really well for the last 6 sessions, and looks like it is trying to also push higher. Although I do believe it to be just a little bit extended. I did buy PanW today. But let me tell you guys, I have been trying to get myself positioned in some fresh names with next to no traction here recently. I still own ARC. I own some EAT, but trimmed on the pullback today. Own some PanW, some TEM, and some TMDX. There are still stocks that look fairly constructive. Dell today was one of those that kind of hit my radar, looking like it's trying to continue to go higher. And the nice part is like it feels like there's a bit of broadening out still happening in the market, right? You still got these former leaders, whether it's your Hood or your CrowdStrike or your Zscaler or even a Carvana or Rubrik, or they're not really going away. And then you've got the semiconductors. I've been talking about them pretty much every day. LRCX, KLAC. SMCI starting to look a little bit more constructive. Yes, there are definitely your leaders and laggards, and you would prefer to be in a TSM or an NVIDIA or an AVGO or even CRDO for that matter. But, LRCX, KLAC has come on very strong lately. AMD is trying to make its way back above the 200. Obviously, today, like a lot of names, you have a bit of a pullback, and nothing really wrong with this pullback within an uptrend for now. And same thing with a Palantir, right? Where, yeah, you just get an all down day effectively with very minimal bounce, not until the end of the day. But the reality is, if you just zoom out on this thing is in an uptrend. And there's nothing at all to argue with this. It's living above the 20 simple moving average. It's not really speeding up away from the 50. Nothing really wrong with a Palantir just because of one down day. And you've got your Microsofts continue to act well. The only one that I would say, acted a bit poorly today was one Tesla. A continued rejection off of its 20 simple moving average. We don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I've said it before, 335.50 is your spot. If it can't reclaim 611's high, then I would just personally leave it alone. And then again, Apple still acts very poorly. Doesn't really matter what the market's doing. Market's up, Apple's down. Market's down, Apple's down. And right now we are living below the 200. That's down sloping. We are living below the 50. The market has effectively V-shaped recovered, and Apple looks pretty damn disgusting. Not really doing the market any favors. And then just when I think that, maybe these things can get going out of these small little bull flags, a Hut, a Coors, an Iron, mark obviously Bitcoin dependent. Bitcoin just decides itself that it's going to totally, have just a nasty down day, effectively like a bearish engulfing, break yesterday's lows. We're kind of just hanging in there. I don't really know what's going to happen, but in the meantime, the 50's catching up. This could just be a cup and a handle, and it's just kind of chopping everybody up in the meantime. But I don't really know exactly what's going to happen here with Bitcoin. I don't like to prognosticate on the future, but the reality is that Bitcoin, has kind of led momentum on the way up. And right now it's just doing a whole bunch of nothing. And if you actually think about Bitcoin, really since the middle of May, or really, closer to the ends of May, May 23rd, while this has just been chopping around, seemingly I've been getting chopped up. Not anything crazy, right? I've had some decent little trades here and there, and I've done a really nice job kind of managing risk. There are some stocks that I'm obviously kicking myself a little bit over not still owning, and one of them being Palantir, another one being CrowdStrike. And again, even like a Netflix, this one got a little extended, so I finally let it go. But it's not doing anything wrong here. It's just digesting along the 20 simple moving average. I don't know if we break it tomorrow. I don't know. We've got a break on Thursday with Juneteenth, so not entirely sure what's going to happen there. But this one's not acting all that terrible. And again, there are some stocks where it's like you look at it and you're like, man, I wish I still owned it. But that's just the nature of the beast, and I'm not too upset about it. Gains have been made and progress has been made, but now the job really is don't get chopped up while the next leg of stocks kind of set up, or for that next leg higher. And in the meantime, just try and get myself repositioned in names that are acting like they want to go higher, potentially like a Palo Alto Network, potentially like a Dell. And then also wait for cleaner setups and names that I believe to be leadership quality, something like a Hood. And, you could even look at something like Roblox, just absolutely nonstop. I look at this here and there is a 0% chance that I would be a buyer of this stock up here, literally 0%. But obviously this has, I think, probably been the best mover since market bottomed on in the beginnings of April. I mean, effectively hasn't even touched its 20 simple moving average. Incredible move for a Roblox. Again, nothing really you can do, or really should not be chasing this thing. GEV has done a superb job, coming back into the 20, rebuilding a nice little base for the last couple weeks. GEV, similar story. Kind of rebuilding a little base up here, potentially a little high handle. VST in that energy space as well, hopefully builds out a little high handle. CCJ, similar story, right? It's a little extended here, but hopefully will build out a little high handle. So I don't really know what's going to happen here going forward, but obviously there are some stocks again in the same energy space like Oklo. Just a full down day. Nothing really wrong with this chart at all when you zoom out. Here's just a beautiful cup. Do we just go sideways, build a whole new base, and then we can get going from there? SMR, kind of what looks like a little nasty down day, but in the grand scheme of things, it's fairly typical for how much something like this has gone up. And then NNE, your laggard, not only did they go down today, they also had an offering, if I'm not mistaken, in after hours, but didn't really seem to matter too much from this name. Anything else really seem notable off the top of my head? Gold was down. Silver continues to act absolutely awesome. Gold had a nice down day today, or really should I say the day prior, and then today just small consolidation. Right now it's not really doing anything right. It's not really doing anything wrong. And the same can be said for the gold miners. NEM continues to hang in there really nicely. WPM continues to hang in there really nicely. EGO, I think, looks pretty dang good if this thing can break out over 2160. And then AG for silver names looks like a nice little high type flag if silver wants to continue higher. This one looks like it could potentially get going, although it is a bit extended from the 50. And, silver, I thought when it got over 35, we would be going to see $40. Well, it still looks like we're on the way there. Don't really know, again, what's going to happen. Like I said, market is closed on Thursday, and I am trying to get myself, repositioned in some stocks. But the reality, guys, is it has been super choppy. Again, even like a Dash, where you think Dash looks pretty dang good. Today taking out yesterday's lows. So if you're buying it yesterday, you're out today. Again, this is just kind of what it is. And I've even kind of made mention in the group, for anybody who's on for pre-market, or even, while I'm trading during the day, I've kind of talked about just size right, knowing that the 20 simple moving average is your stop. and then just give it a little bit more wiggle room with smaller size. Don't think about using low of day right now without things being like the market's not coming from a tight place or a beaten up place. Yes, the market may be in an uptrend, but the reality is if you're positioned for things up here and you have no prior exposure, guys, the market effectively V-shaped recovered, a few points off all-time highs. I'm not saying that we can't go to all-time highs, but it was much easier to buy stocks in middle of April and even early May, like right around here, any of this time here, follow through day on 422 after the ugly breath day, or 423 or 424. It was much easier to buy stocks in here, even early May, than it has been to buy stocks over the last 2 weeks. It's been a lot of chop, but again, stocks continue to act well. It does feel like, participation is broadening out. Banks are acting well, and we can kind of take a look at some of those. JP Morgan, I still think looks pretty dang good, just flagging out here. Goldman Sachs looks pretty dang good. Bank of New York Mellon looks pretty good. Schwab looks pretty good. Now, I don't know if they're going to go or not, but they look pretty damn good. And then obviously we talked about these semis, LRCX, KLAC, you name it. They all look pretty damn good in super nice uptrends. And I mean, again, even at KLAC, new all-time high today. Obviously, a bit of a rejection, but still acting pretty dang good. And I am a believer that if semiconductors and banks are in uptrends, you're going to have a hard time knocking the market down. And yes, you have a down day today in the market, but really in the grand scheme of things, minuscule. I mean, literally super minuscule. Do we have a bigger check back, towards the 50 simple moving average? That would be nice. That would probably help reset a handful of charts. And I would be completely open to that idea. But again, I have no clue. I'm just trying to get repositioned in stocks as they're acting well. We did talk about during pre-market prep and even right before market open in the room, APPS, super nice move. I talked about 559 being the spot, which was yesterday's high. Just a complete monster of a move today for this APPS on big volume. I know some people owned it, during this uptrend and then, weren't able to sit through any of this, and totally understandable, but definitely looked buyable today over 559. Congratulations to anybody who bought APPS. Again, no opinions, but this does love the volume that's come into this thing once, twice, 3 times. Do we get some follow through from there? I have no idea, but this APPS had a superb day today. As it relates to crude oil was kind of moving like a meme stock today. Up another 4.5%. Obviously, it had a pretty nasty down day yesterday. Where it kind of gaps up a little bit and completely fades off into Monday. Today, right back up like nothing ever happened. And then obviously the smaller caps like a HUSA, massive up day today. And, this was probably one of the most notable moves within the sector. And honestly, guys, that's just kind of the reality for me right now. I'm finding a bunch of great stocks, but I'm just having a hard time getting myself positioned into them. And that's just not because of where we may be going, but because of where we've come from. And we've come from a pretty long way down. And, stocks are just kind of grinding higher. And then you'll get like some kind of news, a gap down, and you get bought back up. And, my thinking has been, and I've stated this, I think that the best place to be buying stocks right now is off of ascending moving averages or undercut and rally of, those said moving averages. So let price come into those key moving averages, potentially even undercut them, and then as they're reclaiming them, use that as your re-entry and then manage risk from that spot. I don't know that buying breakouts, even like a Pan W like I did today, that this sticks to into tomorrow. If it does, God bless it. That would be absolutely awesome. If it does not, then there is not much I can do about it. But cybersecurity definitely felt like a standout group today. And, I hope to be able to stick with a name like this for a little while. So we'll see. Again, There's not a whole lot that I can do. I'm trying to get my butt repositioned in stocks, but really with no dice. I thought ARK was fairly interesting yesterday, and then today, for anybody buying this thing, this little subtle gap up yesterday, you're kind of getting your ass kicked all day today. So if you bought this thing yesterday, you're getting stopped out today. Definitely not a buyer of this yesterday or even for ads. The buy was definitely 59 bucks. And can it go higher? I think it can, but I'm already trimmed in a name like this. And then again, even like a TEM, kind of down today and closing, not all that fantastic, but no real momentum off of this $72 level. And then TMDX, has definitely earned the right to take a break, and I'm fully trimmed in this name as well. So not a whole lot for me to do. Trying to get myself repositioned, and hopefully I will get the watch list video out a little bit later tonight for anybody in the room, and we'll just take it one day at a time, see if we can't get ourselves repositioned. So anyway, hopefully this video finds you guys well, and I will see you guys bright and early for pre-market prep. Cheers.